Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a little behind schedule this week, so I apologize for that, but I'm going to get you all of the rankings that you guys need so you can dominate your opponents in Week 18. In today's video, I'm going over the top 30 options at wide receiver. I also have a supersized amount of notable omissions to let you guys know why I decided to keep them out of my rankings. I want to give you all the backstory I possibly can so we can make the best, most informed decisions together. If you guys have any start or sit questions, make sure you drop those down below or reach out to me on Sleeper. I'm available both places and I'm checking often. I want to be able to support you. If you are new to the channel, welcome. Please like and subscribe. Your support means so very much to me and it helps me out a ton on my road to get my first 200 subscribers. With that all said, done, and out of the way, let's get into Week 18's wide receiver rankings. At the top spot, where he has been for most of the season, is Cooper Kupp at home against San Francisco. With 95 yards on just 7 targets, Kupp was able to put together another top 6 performance, his 9th of the season. It was his first game seeing less than double-digit targets since Week 8. He'll need a monster game to surpass Calvin Johnson in this one, but the 49ers are allowing top 10 points per game numbers to wideouts, so I wouldn't put it past him. This dude is special. Deebo Samuel is my second-ranked player traveling to Los Angeles to take on the Rams. Deebo used only 10 touches to rack up 82 total yards and scored for the 8th time in the last 7 games. He got kept out of the end zone in just 1 of those. The Rams are going to make it difficult on him to be sure, but he's shown an incredible playmaking ability as the overall wide receiver 3. He cannot be contained. Finishing my top 3 is Justin Jet Jefferson at home against Chicago. There was only so much that Jefferson could do with that QB situation in Minnesota, and though he saw 11 targets, he was able to catch just 6 of them for 58 yards. The elite production is going to return with the QB situation no longer in flux. It's only right that he goes out with a big game, and since the Bears allow 6.7 yards per pass, that is bottom 12 in the league, he's going to have every opportunity to do so. My 4th-ranked player is Tyreek Hill. He travels to Denver to take on the Broncos. After just 2 targets in Week 16, Hill got back to a massive 10 targets against the Bengals, but he did not produce very much with it, registering just 40 yards. He's finished as the wide receiver 86 and wide receiver 47 in back-to-back weeks, but you cannot bench him even against the Broncos. The volume should be there again this week, and this time he capitalizes on it. Moving on to 5, Jamar Chase takes on Cleveland on the road. Owners will be singing Chase's praises for a long time after his league-winning day against the Chiefs. With 266 yards and 3 scores, he deserves it. It was his second 200-yard game of the season and vaulted him to the season's wide receiver 4 overall. The Browns are allowing just 4.6 yards per attempt over their last 3, and that is 4th best in the NFL. They can certainly try, but they won't stop Jamar as the Bengals continue to roll to end the year. Up next is Stephon Diggs at home against the Jets, and he's in at 6. If you told me that Diggs was going to get 9 targets against the Falcons, I would have taken it in a heartbeat. Unfortunately for owners, he did, and they did not want to, as he turned it into a sub-40 finish for 52 scoreless yards as Josh Allen struggled mightily through the air. He's going to rebound here in a big way against the Jets, who just surrendered 410 yards through the air to Tom Brady. A.J. Brown is my 7th-ranked player. He travels to Houston to take on the Texans. About the only thing that Miami did right last week against Tennessee was shut down Brown, who had only 5 targets as Ryan Tannehill threw the ball just 19 times. You cannot bench him against Houston, but we must acknowledge the fact that Brown is vulnerable to this type of game script, hurting him here again. I am still rolling with him. Traveling to Baltimore, and in at number 8, it is Deontay Johnson. The last time the Steelers faced off against the Ravens, DJ destroyed them, racking up 105 yards and a pair of 4th-quarter scores. They're just as susceptible now. The only question is, does Big Ben have enough left in the tank? The Ravens allowed 9.4 yards per pass over their last 3. That is most in the league, so I'm dialing up Johnson, even if the ceiling is shrinking due to that quarterback play. Moving on to 9, Traveling to Cleveland, it is T. Higgins. It's been pick your poison for opposing defenses, and last week it was Chase's turn to dominate. Higgins was unable to muster much of an encore on his 5 targets, but we've seen an incredible ceiling in 3 out of his last 6. Owners just hope that it is his turn this week and roll with the results. He is a smash play as long as Joe Burrow is white hot. Keenan Allen rounds out my top 10. He goes on the road to take on Las Vegas. Allen scored for the 4th time in 4 games, and he's hit pay dirt in 3 of those. Vegas allows bottom 10 numbers in both points per game to pass catchers and yards per pass, so it'll once again be an uphill battle. With everything on the line in primetime though, stars show up and Allen will burn bright. Mike Evans is in at 11 against Carolina at home. This is a difficult matchup for Evans as the Panthers allow under 31 points a game to wideouts, that is 6th fewest in the NFL. Brady has no other wide receiver options left, however, with Antonio Brown once again showing his true colors and Chris Godwin out with that ACL injury, so he's going to be peppered with targets. He is almost certain to ball out with them. The last wide receiver one I have in week 18 is DK Metcalf going on the road to take on Arizona. It took over half of the season, but Metcalf finally showed up and finished as a wide receiver 3 against Detroit. He has 104 yards and 4 scores in his last 2 games, and the Cardinals allow 38 points a game to the position. They've also surrendered 7.4 yards per pass in their last 3. Both of those numbers are bottom 5 in the league. A big encore here could be imminent. Up next is Amon-Ra St. Brown at home against Green Bay. Even as Detroit got embarrassed last week, St. Brown showed a bit of a reason for hope for the Lions, finishing the day as the wide receiver 2 overall. In his last 5 games, he's put up a ridiculous stat line: 43 receptions on 57 targets, 451 yards, and 5 scores. Only once in that time did he finish outside the top 7. He's earned a set-it-and-forget-it spot in our lineups to end the year. Michael Pittman travels to Jacksonville to take on the Jags, and he is my 14th ranked player. The Jags allow 7.3 yards per pass, that is 6th most in the league, and have given up 6 passing touchdowns over their last 3 games. I know it has been a bit of a struggle as of late for Pittman, but considering the context, the numbers lie just a little bit. You do not pass up this matchup when you have this talented of a player. He gets right here. Tyler Lockett is in at 15, traveling to Arizona. You already know that I love this matchup, and who knows what happens with Russ after this season, but his connection with Lockett has been historically dominant. It makes sense that these two show off maybe one last time in a big way. The ceiling is high, and the floor isn't as low as we thought it was. It is a worthy gamble. My 16th ranked player is CeeDee Lamb. He travels to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. It's time for Lamb to go from a must-start to a solid wide receiver 2 option, and that is all there is to it. He's failed to get inside the top 30 in his last 4 games and the top 40 in his last 2. The targets have dropped in 4 straight, and he hasn't scored since week 10. The matchup only makes this easier, as Philly is allowing just 4.5 yards per pass over their last 3, tied for 2nd best in the NFL. Sure, he could boom, and Michael Gallup going down helps his target share, but it's been bust much more often as of late. Moving on, it is Brandon Cooks in at 17. He gets Tennessee at home. I was very high on Cooks last week, and he made me look good, finishing as the week's wide receiver 14 while catching 7 of 11 balls for 66 yards and a score. Tennessee allows the 2nd most points per game to wide receivers, so I am going with that as well. For all of the struggles in Houston, Cooks should be commended. To be the wide receiver 16 overall at this point, with all the chaos surrounding him, is truly incredible. At home against the Chargers, Hunter Renfrow is next at 18. Renfrow got back into the top 10 and almost had an even bigger day, coming within inches of a 2nd score. As long as the volume is there, he is going to produce, and it should be once again in a tough matchup with the Chargers. They allow the 4th fewest points per game to the position. I expect a ton of scoring here, and it's likely that Renfrow is involved. Darnell Mooney is my 19th ranked player traveling to Minnesota. I never gave up on Mooney, and he didn't let me down, scoring against New York while compiling 69 yards on 13 targets. In week 15 against the Vikings, he was inches from 2 scores, and he makes good on one of them here. It is a big bonus if Justin Fields can finally return, and that is my expectation. He's aggressively ranked, and it might not be high enough. Odell Beckham Jr. is at home against the 49ers, and he rounds out my top 20. Touchdown dependency or not, Beckham continues to hit pay dirt, and he's made it 5 of 6 doing so against the Ravens. He caught the biggest ball of his career on 4th down and 5 last week as the Rams looked to try to get the lead back. Then he finished the job with the touchdown as time was expiring. Stafford clearly trusts him, and that means something, so continue to dial him up. In at 21, it is Mike Williams on the road against Las Vegas. Williams was able to save his day with a 45-yard score, but that is just a tool in his belt that he hadn't put to use for a little while. With 6 or less targets in 2 out of his last 3, the lack of volume is certainly concerning, but he's shown a decent enough floor that we can buy his potential upside at this stage of my rankings. In at 22, it is Van Jefferson. It wasn't a particularly impressive performance from Jefferson last week, but at least he didn't kill you like he had in the previous 2. The current 3-game lull that he is on is certainly concerning, but I have a feeling that it is his time this week against the Niners. Way down at number 23, it is Jalen Waddle at home against New England. A major disappointment for managers in a critical week. Waddle was held to 47 yards on 7 targets as the Dolphins imploded. He takes a major hit in my rankings against a top 5 Patriots secondary, who's allowing under 30 points per game to the position. After last week's debacle, it is certainly hard to keep the faith. He still deserves wide receiver 2 consideration, but the risk is far from ideal. The last wide receiver 2 and in at 24 is Christian Kirk, who is averaging 10 targets per game in his last 3 with 221 yards and a score in that time. He has shown a solid floor in the last 4 games, making him a safe play at the very least. The Seahawks have given up 5 scores and 6.9 yards per pass in their last 3. Both of those numbers are bottom 10 in the league, so he provides upside this week as well. Davante Adams rounds out my top 25 traveling to Detroit, and the tumble here is due to the unknown with Adams. If he's active in a meaningless week 18, how much does he really play? It is so tough to bench him, but it might be your best call. That being said, he could also catch a handful of balls and score and make you feel silly for benching the stud. Keep a close eye on reports, and we hope for more clarity come Friday. Moving on to 26, it's Amari Cooper on the road against Philadelphia. It's likely that Cooper is shadowed by Darius Slay in this game, and he was held to 3 catches for just 26 yards under those circumstances the last time these 2 teams met up. Amari has scored in 3 out of the last 4 games, or he would be completely off my list. My 27th ranked player taking on the Rams on the road is Brandon Ayuk. I was spot on in my ranking of Ayuk last week as the 28th player on my list. He's the perfect high-end flex option due to his solid floor, falling outside the top 28 just twice in his last 7 games. And in at 28, it is Chase Claypool traveling to Baltimore. Over the last 3 weeks, Claypool has done nothing to earn a spot in my rankings, but the matchup means it must be done. He is averaging 7.5 targets in his last 2 games, and if he sees that type of volume here, he'll be able to produce with it. DJ Moore travels to Tampa Bay, and he's up next at 29. Moore was held in check mostly by his own offense on Sunday, and he couldn't get anything going with Sam Darnold at the helm. If not for his consistent target share, he wouldn't even be considered. But he has 51 targets in his last 5 games, so he kind of has to be. It is simply a floor play here. With perceived safety, the ceiling days are over. The last player in my top 30 is Terry McLaurin, who goes on the road to take on the Giants. Scary Terry's wide receiver 35 finish against Philly was his best since week 11, and that was the reason he missed the cut for me last week. Back in week 2, when these 2 teams met up, however, McLaurin had his best finish of the season as he caught 11 out of 14 balls for 107 yards and he scored. He's going to get fed here, and a boom game is more than due, but I acknowledge that his bust tendencies over the last month and a half have been prevalent. So, do you feel lucky? I have a supersized amount of notable omissions for you. I start with Braxton Berrios going on the road to take on Buffalo. This is pretty simple. Do not chase the points. The entire Jets offense was out last week, leaving Berrios as the only guy with a pulse. I give him credit for capitalizing, but unless New York is once again without Michael Carter, Corey Davis, Jamison Crowder, and Elijah Moore, he's going to fade back into obscurity. Devonta Smith is the next guy I am hoping to pass on. He gets a home matchup with Dallas. I got pulled in by the wide receiver 1 finish in week 16, I admit it, but I won't be fooled again. Dallas's defense is going to be hungry this week, and there is far too much risk for the payoff that Smith could and likely won't provide. Russell Gage has a home matchup with New Orleans this week, and I was off Gage last week, and that worked out, and I'm not going to jump back in on him against the Saints, who allow just 4.5 yards per attempt over their last 3. Those numbers are second best in the NFL. Marquise Brown is at home against Pittsburgh. He's the next guy I'm trying to pass on, and he could end up in my rankings on Friday if and only if Lamar Jackson is back and can give it a go. He is a completely different player with Jackson at the helm. On the road against Cleveland, Tyler Boyd is next, and his wide receiver 27 finish last week was within 3 spots of where I had him. But I feel a T. Higgins, Jamar Chase focus week coming in this game. I am fading Boyd this week, even though he scored in 3 straight, and I'm hoping I don't regret it. The last player on my list is KJ Osborne at home against Chicago. There's some intrigue here to be sure. Osborne has finished inside the wide receiver 2 range, and he scored in 4 out of 5. So it is possible I have him in my final rankings at the end of the week, but for now, I like other options better. And that's all she wrote in the wide receiver week 18 video. I hope you guys pulled some great information from it and that it helped you out. If you are new to the channel, if you haven't done it yet, or if you are just enjoying the content, please like and subscribe. I appreciate your support so very much. It helps me out a ton. If you have any start questions, any sit questions, make sure you drop them down below or reach out to me on Sleeper. I would love to be able to support you. This is Relentless Press. I'm your host, Abraham Opatz, and we'll see you next time.